The protests and police abuse of authority continues in Ferguson, Missouri. If there was anybody left that thought the cops weren't out of control, some of the news from yesterday should sway you, and there should be no doubt in your mind. So Don Lemon, who of course is a CNN reporter, a very centrist, moderate, nothing kind of guy. I mean, every once in a while he says something that's considered liberal. All the time he says stuff that's considered conservative. In fact, the African-American community has gone after him pretty strongly because he agreed with some of Bill O'Reilly's sentiments about how young black men are thugs. So he's a mixed bag and an interesting character. And he was on the ground in Ferguson. And on air, he was manhandled by an officer who forced him into a designated free speech zone. And he was making clear on the air, as there's a police officer basically strong-arming him and backing him up. He's basically saying, look, we're not even really doing anything wrong here. I don't understand why we're being forced into this tiny little area and why these police officers are exerting control over us. It seems absolutely arbitrary and absolutely unnecessary, and it doesn't make any sense. And for the first time, Don Lemon said, I didn't feel safe. Excuse me. I didn't feel safe in Ferguson. So that's interesting because, again, I can't stress this enough. I can't reiterate this enough. Don Lemon is not somebody that, conservatives would look at like, he's an Al Sharpton character or a Jesse Jackson character or the grievance industry, as they call him. No. He's made clear, he's kind of staked a position in what he would argue is the middle, and what I would argue is actually probably center-right. But even he's like, yeah, no, on the ground in Ferguson, we have some massive problems, and this is not okay. So, we just got news right before we came on air that now the total number of reporters that have been arrested is 6. Mostly peaceful protests. The officers are finding ways to arrest reporters. 6 of them have now been arrested. Then a Getty Images photographer was arrested yesterday because, quote, the media is required to be in a certain area. That's the reasoning they gave. He was outside of the designated area. Look, what these officers apparently don't understand is we already have a designated area where you can protest and where you can do free speech. It's called the United States of America. That's the whole idea of the United States of America, is that the First Amendment and the Constitution itself is not arguable. It's not open to debate. It's not open to interpretation. You can't say, you're free to protest and you are free to have freedom of speech, but only when I say so and only where I say so, because then that's not freedom of speech. Then you're controlling where they do it. And what we're dealing with here is, whether it's the situation with Don Lemon or whether it's the situation with the Getty Images photographer, is we're dealing with somebody who's just slightly outside of the designated area, and they said, simply for not being in the area that we told you, we're going to arrest you. Now, can anybody look you in the eyes after hearing this information and say, yeah, they're not just using authority for authority's sake. They're not getting off on their power. They're not just happy to control people who slightly disagree with them. No, they can't wait to do this. It's the same thing that we mentioned the past few shows where we've covered this now. When all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So you have these police officers who are waiting to flex their authority, whether it's legitimate or not. And they also, since they have all this military gear, they can't wait to put that into action, even if there's not a good reason to put it into action. But, okay, are you ready for the worst thing yet? While protesting for Mike Brown in St. Louis, a 90-year-old Holocaust victim was arrested. Officers arrested a Holocaust survivor. Now, wait until you hear the reason why, she was arrested. Was it, she was throwing rocks at officers? No. Was it, she was using a violent weapon or making noise or screaming obscenities at children? No. She, quote, failed to disperse when cops told her to. They're a self-parody. I have to be honest with you guys. When I first read that headline, I thought, no, that's from The Onion. No, that's not real. That's satire. That can't be true. A 90-year-old Holocaust survivor arrested by police officer when she's protesting for peace. She's protesting because an unarmed 18-year-old black kid got shot with his hands in the air. There's got to be satire. Got to be satire. Then I went to the next website. Same article was there. Then I went to my next website. Same article was there. Either 14 highly respected news sites got duped or it's real. It appears like it's real. You didn't disperse quickly enough on your 90-year-old legs. What kind of a time frame did you give her? No, this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. You have to understand, I was talking to my friend earlier about this. We were texting each other back and forth. I said, the police have become the criminals. They're not keeping law and order. They're the ones that are getting rid of law and order. They're the ones that are violating it. Now, to be overly kind and overly fair to the police officers here, understand that there certainly are reports coming out today that what's called agitators have become more pervasive in the protest movement. And they've actually been identified. The Daily Beast had a fantastic article that said one of these groups is from outside states, and they're actually a communist group. I didn't even know there were any of those left in America. Another one is a group that has revolution in their title. And they said, look, agitators are taking over. And, you know, it's becoming increasingly militarized on both sides. And I understand that, and I'm willing to point out the blame on both sides. If you're somebody who's in the protest movement and you're somebody who ends up rioting or looting or doing violence, that's totally unacceptable, and you're making the situation worse, because what happens? Even if it's just 1% or 5% at most of the protesters who are doing violent actions, then the police turn around and say, no, all the protesters are not peaceful. They all need to disperse, and we're going to use tear gas on all of them, including reporters like Al Jazeera reporters, which happened about 3 or 4 days ago. So the violence is escalating, and look, it's incumbent upon the police because they have more authority and they have more weapons and they do have the upper hand. It's incumbent upon them to actually do something constructive to reach peace. So what would I do if I was in charge of the police over there? How would I handle the situation? Look, it's very simple. You take all the police officers and you have them line up around all the stores in the area where they're protesting to stop any looting or any rioting by the stores. And then everybody who marches by who's a peaceful protester, let them peacefully protest. But you shouldn't be provocative. You shouldn't fire tear gas. You shouldn't use rubber bullets. You shouldn't use noise machines, because the reports are that they're using those on the peaceful people. Okay? So, you know, it's a shame because, let's be honest, the only thing that the protesters are really calling for at this point in time, and the only thing that they want, is justice for Mike Brown. I mean, the chants are no justice, no peace, and they're walking around with their hands up. Okay, so what do they want? They want this guy arrested. They want the police officer who killed him arrested, and he should be arrested. There's already enough evidence in. I mean, at least 6 shots, 2 of them to the head, reports of hands up in the air, could be anywhere from 5 feet to 35 feet away when he got shot and killed. It's unacceptable at this point. If it was any other person, they would already be in jail. If it was a black guy, they would have been in jail on day 1, hour 1. But since it's a police officer, they go, we're going to give you all the leeway in the world. We're not even going to arrest you when we have enough evidence to arrest you. Well, for fuck's sake, arrest him already.